Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be learning about dimensional analysis. So we're going to start with one-step problems. Now one-step problems and two-step problems are set up the exact same way. So once you learn the process, it should be easy and smooth transition for you. So the first thing you need to do if you want to do a one-step dimensional analysis conversion is you need to draw your table. So the way that we do that is we draw a long horizontal line and then we draw a vertical line at the end. So it will look like this. So I'm sure you've all been to Thanksgiving or Christmas or maybe like Hanukkah, one of those other big holidays where you've got a lot of food. There's always that one food that you hate. You don't want it on your plate. So if you don't want this food on your plate because you absolutely despise it, it's like turnips or something, but your grandmother scoops a pile on your plate anyway, despite the fact that you don't want it. So what do? You take it, you put it under the table, and feed it to the dog. We are going to do the same thing with the units that we don't want. Whenever we don't want a unit, we put it under the table. Then, whatever you do want, for example, delicious, delicious pie, gets put on top of the plate, on top of the table. Same thing here. This, right here, this is our table. Whatever we don't want goes under the table, whatever we do want comes on top. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through an example problem which will show you how to set it up. So for example, let's say that we have 4,500 millimeters and we want to convert it to centimeters. Now, whenever we set this up, the setup is always the same, remember. So to the left of this T, this area is always going to be where we put our given. Anything to the right is going to be where we put what we call conversion factors. So conversion factors might be something like there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, or there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Those are all conversion factors. They would go to the right. Our given is whatever we start with. So for example, on this, we don't start knowing how many centimeters we have, but we do start knowing how many millimeters we have. So what we do is we put what we start with, our 4,500 millimeters, on the top. And I'm going to use purple for what we start with. So we start with 4,500 millimeters. Now, we're going to put the number 1 underneath. All that means is that you're effectively dividing by 1. This is just saying that it's a regular old number, there's nothing fancy underneath, but it just puts it to the top. Doing the 1 underneath just makes it so that our number is at the top, which makes it so we can do the rest of the stuff we need to do. Okay? So, we have, up top, millimeters. But do we want millimeters? No. We do not want millimeters, so what do? We put it under the table, we feed it to the dog. So millimeters come down below. Now, we do know a conversion factor between millimeters and centimeters. We happen to know that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. So we can relate these two things. They are related to each other. We have a factor that can relate to them. So what we now do is we put what we want, our centimeters, up top. So I'm going to use red for this. We put our centimeters up top. Now you'll notice our centimeters are down below, or our millimeters are down below. When we divide by something, by itself rather, that means that it cancels out, because if I have 90 kajillion divided by 90 kajillion, you're still going to get 1, and you always will get 1. So any number divided by itself is always 1. Therefore, whenever we have it on the top, we also need it on the bottom, so it cancels out. So what we're now going to do is we're now going to put our values next to our units up here. So we're going to put 10 next to millimeters, because it's 10 here. And next to our centimeters, we're going to put 1. And then we come back through. We're going to cross off our millimeters because they cancel. We're going to circle our centimeters because they are still left. They're only on top, not on the bottom. Now, it's time for the next step. Now what we do, we multiply what's on the top, we multiply what's on the bottom. So 4,500 times 1 is still 4,500. So we write that up top. And we keep our unit because it's still there, it still exists. This is still the unit that we have. So we put centimeters up top. Now down below, we have 1 times 10, which is of course 10. So we put 10 down below. But if you'll notice, there's no units left on the bottom, so we don't put any units with that. So now we're going to do the division. So we have 4,500 divided by 10. That gives us 450, if I can actually write the number right, centimeters. There we go. So 450 centimeters is our answer. So we're going to do one more to show this process. Okay, so this time we are going to do a conversion. We're going to draw our table again. So let's say that we want to now convert from, let's say, seconds to minutes, okay? So let's say that we have 5 minutes and we want to go to seconds. Okay. So what we're going to look at is our given. So first we have our given, our 5 minutes. That goes on our plate. Now, do we know any conversion factors that relate minutes to seconds? Of course we do. We know that for every minute, we have 60 seconds. So we're going to write that down below so we remember. Okay. So now remember, we don't want minutes, we want seconds. So where do the minutes go? Under the table. And can't forget, we of course have our 1 under here. Now we do relate straight from minutes to seconds, so we're going to put seconds up top. And the number of minutes we have is of course 1. Our number of seconds would be 60. So at this point, our minutes cancel. We are left with seconds, which is what we want. Coming over to this side, now it's time to do the actual math. So 5 times 60, 1 times 1. So that would be equal to 5 times 60 would be 360 minutes, or I'm sorry, seconds. And notice on the bottom, it's 1 times 1, which is 1, so it's going to be 1, and there are no units, which gives us an answer of 360 seconds. So at this point, I'm going to say timeout, pause the video.